Bear with me, some of it will kind of sound a little repetitive, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay. Uh, and so, you guys, I can't see you while I'm looking at the screen here, but today we're going to talk about inclusion and diversity, starting the conversations. As Josh said earlier, the Timothy Center wants to expand. And so, with that expansion comes that inclusion and also opening more opportunities up for people of color. Mental health, the condition of being sound mentally and emotionally that is characterized by the absence of mental health and adequate adjustment, especially as reflected in feelings comfortable about oneself, positive feelings about others, and the ability to meet the demands of daily life. In respect to since we're talking about people of color, I will specifically be addressing African Americans. And we're talking about mental health and counseling. So this is important because as an African American counselor, we have to be mentally sound as well and emotional. And I'll explain a little bit more about that, and that may be affected. Diversity, the quality or state of having many different forms, the state of having people who are different races or who have different cultures in a group or organization, which is what the Timothy Center is doing by having these trainings and doing outreach in the community. Inclusion, the act or practice of including people who have historically been excluded. Um, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And that goes on with race, gender, sexuality, and also ability. Culture of or relating to a particular group of people and their habits and beliefs. And this is where we are seeing individuals culturally and for their culture differences. Now I want to talk about race and ethnicity. Sometimes the two terms are used simultaneously. Some people think they mean the same. And this is where I kind of just want to break it down a little bit for you. Race, distinct physical characteristics, because genetic some scientists are humans as belonging to a single race, the human race. And so sometimes when we talk about race, this is where we kind of talk about different class, and we may use it with ethnicity. Ethnicity is different. Ethnicity is culture, language, nationality, heritage, religion, dress, and customs. And so they are a little different. I even notice now um, some entities or when you're looking up like different people and things, it's usually just saying human race. And so now we're starting to really use the two terms differently and see them differently because they are. Race and ethnicity, summing it up. The difference is there is a difference between race and ethnicity. Race is biological, while ethnicity is cultural. Ethnicity can be displayed or hidden, while race generally cannot be. Ethnicity can be adopted, ignored, or broadened, while racial characteristics cannot. Ethnicity has subcategories, while races no longer been used as forms as division, because sometimes historically, the two terms have been used to divide. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about BIPOC again. BIPOC, which is an acronym that stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. This term it's been around, I think, since the 80s, and it's really making a comeback where every person of color can kind of be included under this umbrella. I identify as And this is where we take that BIPOC and we look at individuals and we look at their culture individually. Um, I am American, but I also classify myself as an African American because of family descent. That's going to be different for everyone. Some people want to be classified as Black, African American, Caribbean, Afro Caribbean. We're talking about, um, I identify as, it's really best to ask, because that goes back to the term of race. Because my skin is darker, the melanin in my skin is darker, and people may just want to classify me as being Black. But this is where we really start to have the conversations and we ask these questions with the people that we work with so that we're not making assumptions about what their culture is and how they identify themselves. Equality versus equity. So now we're opening the doors. We are inviting
And Teresa,
interns of color, more clinicians of color.
Teresa,
Equality
can you
versus
hear me?
equity. The difference between equality and equity. And I took this from, this was actually a quote from a play therapy journal. And I just added this because I love the way he broke it down.
Teresa, can you hear me?
Equality means sameness, while
She can hear us.
equality means sameness, while equity
Yeah,
means in the effort to achieve
sounds good.
equal results, being responsive to the
Should we jump up
particular
and down?
circumstances. And so while we're
Maybe I'll
inviting
find my
people of
question.
color in to come and work with us and to serve communities of color to decrease that disparity, this is where we are creating that unity and that commitment to serve our community for everyone. And we're making it equal and accessible for everyone. Um, and this can also, one of the things to know about equality and equity is that it can also be seen as reverse discrimination as well. And one of the justifications for equality and equity, justification for considering diversity in the hiring process as a goal for equity and achieving equal results in order to be responsive to the needs of underrepresentation. So one of the ways that we can address that reverse discrimination is justifying why we have to be diverse. We have to be diverse in order to reach that underrepresented population, and addressing that we have that need and that we have to open the doors for people of color so that we can help the communities of color, because as we learned in the other training, sometimes people of color may only be counseled by people of color because of experience or barriers or stigma or whatever that particular barrier may be for that individual. So this is one of the ways to kind of justify that, is to justify by reaching the underrepresented population. What does it all mean in the workplace? And to address that, I have a little video here. See if it'll play for me, which it will not, of course not. If I can get it to play. Of course, it played in practice. Let's see if I can get it for you. Sorry, guys. No, I can't hear you. Oh, sorry, you guys.
No worries.
Um, oh, okay. Sorry, I don't know why the video won't play, but I'm getting it here. Come on. You guys, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, 1 minute and then I'll have it. Come on. Sorry, now I just got nervous.
It's got to be more nerve-wracking that she can't hear us too.
Oh, come on. Today of all days. Yeah.
So too, technology is fantastic when it works.
I know it sucks. Come on. Oh, thank you, Josh. I see you writing here, but I know it's not perfect and it's driving me crazy. I'm a perfectionist. Are you kidding me? Okay. I literally just ran all of this today. Um, okay, you guys. We're fine. Sucks because it was a really good one too. Okay, 1 more minute. I'll try one more thing, and then if I can't find it, I'll say forget it. Okay, so anyway, this video pretty much was about, was just talking about diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And it was good. Okay, so we will go on because now it's not working. Sorry about that. And somebody say yes if you can see my screen still. Okay, so the video didn't work. So statistics. I'm
Yes.
segregating
Can you
myself
hear?
here.
But can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, statistics. So here's a little bit of background. About 86% of mental health professionals are white, about 4% are African American, about 5% are Hispanic, and about 5% are Asian. And so what that means for the mental health field is that African American therapists are hard to come by. And so that also means on the other side of that, excuse me, is as an African American therapist, when I walk into the room, I pretty much know I will be the only one. And sometimes that's a little nerve wracking, and it goes back to that mental health aspect of being emotionally and mentally sound and ready to provide service. And when so now that we're talking about, okay, African Americans, we're in the door. How am I going to do this? How am I going to fit in? How are things going to go? And so now we're going to talk about some barriers to kind of making it all work. There's exclusion, microaggressions, unconscious bias, and then this new thing that's popping up called the Karen. Exclusion. Um, I just want to explain that diversity does not equal because a practice or a workplace is diverse does not mean that it is equally inclusive. And things about exclusion or things like failing to involve those peers that don't necessarily look like you, excluding those peers from conversations or caseloads that they're involved on, that and those clinicians don't look like you. Exclusion could take the form of it could take the form of kind of being cliquish. Um, in retrospect, inclusion could be talking about a clinician's client without involving uh, the clinician. Um, yeah. Microaggressions. There are a couple of microaggressions. Microassaults, which is just flat out racism, where things are basically racist things are just being said. It's not unconscious, it's very conscious and very blatant. Micro insults and micro invalidations, they can be verbal and nonverbal. And I've actually heard this. There are phrases like, you are articulate. I mean, what does that mean? All African Americans are not articulate, cannot articulate or ethnicity. Things like this particular, oh, I have listing a therapist talents and then saying, oh, she is Black or she is African American. It can come off as being an insult or invalidation because we have to stop and ask ourselves, are we using the same terms or as we would with our white counterparts? Or are we making the same statements that we would with our white counterparts? Or are we using these statements? And sometimes a lot of these, and these particular microaggressions, which are the micro insults and micro invalidations, a lot of them are just really unconscious. And so this is where we're kind of taking stock of who we are and the statements that we're making and asking ourselves, are we using these same statements to address our white peers? Unconscious bias, also known as implicit bias. And these are the attitudes and stereotypes that we have about people that don't necessarily look like us. And it happens to all of us. And it's really being aware of what they are that tends to come out in the conversations and the statements that we're making. These can even come across as making statements when we're addressing each other. There's been times when I've been upset, hey, well, is that really being addressed? Is that statement being said across the board? Is it just me? Or even making assumptions about the type of music I listen to. So it's just really taking into account of, are we having these same conversations with people that don't necessarily look like us, that can come across as either microaggressions, but they come from our unconscious bias. And then there's the Karen, making false accusations because of ethnicity. I actually read an article about this where it is happening in the workplace, where certain false statements are being made about groups of people because of stereotypes. And we know that those accusations will be taken seriously because of that person, because of the color of the person's skin. And if you guys are not familiar with the Karen, you can Google it. It's an incident that happened. I can't remember what state it happened in, but it was where The white lady threatened to call the police on an African American gentleman. Basically, the scenario was made up, but she was calling the police to report him. But this is happening in the workplace, so it's something to kind of take note of because it is a barrier um, as well. So, what can we do? Conversation with center doing. Um, Opening the doors, asking those hard questions, policies. This is where we need to ask ourselves, are there policies in place to address any type of discrimination or inequality situation? And if so, what do those policies look like? Who are they there to protect? What's the protocol for them? And who's the first point of contact? And so having some concrete policies in place for everyone so that not just to protect a person of color, but to also teach and use it as educational tool as well. Be open to change and feedback. Um, this is where we're allowing um, African Americans, because I'm African American, um, to be able to open to change and feedback. Like if there's something that I see that may need to change or that's not coming across very well, being open to that feedback because you're not necessarily wearing those shoes. And so being able to hear a different perspective and then make the changes necessary to have all inclusive practice. Question self. This is where we really start to question what we're thinking, what we're saying, how we're responding, the types of questions that we're asking, or even if we're asking questions that need to be asked or addressing situations that need to be asked. How am I showing up every day? Am I showing up as the best version of myself to provide, to be a supportive peer? Acknowledgement. Um, this goes to acknowledging that yes, we are different. Not acknowledging doesn't make it go away and it doesn't make it better. But acknowledging that we are different and that we come from different cultural backgrounds and that we may perceive certain theoretical approaches differently, we may perceive caseloads differently, um, and we may process it differently. But acknowledging that there is that difference there and starting the conversation about that. Um, Being supportive. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot, I'll say me, on my shoulders. And so being supportive in that respect of having to like show up every day. Um, and yeah, mental health check-in. And this is where that acknowledgement and that support comes in. This is where we can offer people of color like that mental check. And this is the reason I address this. There are a lot of things in sessions that, as a person of color, I hear that are sometimes quite offensive, that I don't have a place to process that. And so that's where that support and that mental health check-in really comes into play. And this is where I kind of want to give an example. I was in a session with a young lady. She's about 11 years old. And just general conversation. She was talking about a field trip that she was going to go on at the end of this year. They were going to go to Louisiana, I think it was Louisiana. And she was just really excited about this field trip. And then she's telling me about it. And we're going to go to this plantation and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And she's 11. And I'm having to process an 11-year-old white child excited about going to visit a plantation in 2020. And so just things like that, or my older client voicing her opinion, about the riots and the things that, are going on. And so this is where that outside world does overlap into our professional as well. And so this is where we can offer African American clients, our peers, support in doing that mental health check-in, um, after sessions and seeing what's going on and that whole process. Take it by a test. I highly recommend it because this will really kind of let us know where we are or where we are and then how we've grown by taking it a couple of times. Hear the voice. Um, as people of color, we're sitting sometimes in meetings or we have ideas or questions or different things that we want to add. Are we being heard or are we just being given that passive type of um, clinical response? Or are we really being taken seriously? Are our ideas being taken seriously? Opinions being taken seriously? This is where, as a practice, like we're checking if we are including those different ideas. We hear that voice, we hear that different perspective about that client, and we're really taking that to heart. Avoid the clinical response because this is what we do on a day-to-day basis. But when we are interacting with our peers that are different from us, sometimes that clinical response of, oh, well, that's a great question, may sound kind of invalidating and passive and dismissive. And so we really want to be careful about avoiding that clinical response when that feedback is being given in meetings or roundtables or we're going over cases and things like that. Okay, let's see if I can get this video to play or at least show it. Oops. Because this was a really good one too. This one was. Oh, no. I just had it. My life. This is actually by DuPont.
Teresa, can you hear me?
Yes.
You forgot to turn the volume on. So you want to start over again. At the bottom, you want to click on share volume as well. Share your sound.
Teresa, you can finally hear us. This is so awesome.
And now I don't know what to do. Okay, wait. Hold on. Wait. You guys still can't hear it? Or no?
No. Try to unmute it. Looks like it's muted.
Can you hear it now?
No.
No? Um,
I've never even tried to do video via Meet, so I wonder if there's a.
yeah, because I
I
can't.
bet in the settings there's a share sound.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, let
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, go to the bottom right hand corner with the three dots. Go where
I
it
think
says
I have to
settings.
get out of. I think I have to get out
Yeah.
of everything in order to do that. Um. Okay, there we go. Um. change screen settings. Okay. It's not checked. Built-in microphone, audio. Yeah, I see it. It's not like it doesn't have an X through it or anything.
Yeah, I've never tried from this either, so.
These were really good videos.
Well, I found your first
Don't mark
video for
that.
you, Teresa. Your first video
Don't mark.
is in the chat. I found the first video
Okay.
for you.
Don't mark this off on the evaluation. Okay. Andy, you're lovely. Totally owe you coffee. But can you hear it?
Still can't hear it.
Mm-mm.
Try to turn the captions on and see if that might kick something in.
Okay. Says autoplay. I'm showing volume everywhere on my end.
Yeah, I don't know. Usually for Zoom, you can click on a box that says "Use my audio for everybody else."
I'm sorry. I'll try
I've
it
never
one more
tried
time.
Google.
Let me look at it. Yeah. I'm looking at the three boxes. They're all. It's not. Yeah, the volume showing.
If you manage a team, you have to try Monday.com. Monday.com is a platform to track every.
Hi, my name is
I hear something.
There you go. You got it now.
Technology.
I do? Okay.
No, that was me.
That was him.
Never mind. It was Josh.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
trying to find a video to tell us how to share audio with Google Meet. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, in the meantime, here we go.
Hey, here's an idea.
Yeah.
What I was doing is that YouTube video was playing through my speakers on my computer, and then the microphone from my computer was picking it up.
Oh, okay.
Maybe take out your earphones, and we'll have the same thing. I don't think that's the solution, but it worked.
The earphones actually do cause
Whatever gets it done today.
the earphones
Okay.
do actually cause an
Let's see if this works. So you guys yell at me if you can hear it. Can you hear anything?
Are you
Now, is your
unplugged?
computer volume up?
Yep.
Are you unplugged?
Okay. So how about we do this? We go to, sorry guys about the video, they were really good too. Okay, so building bridges. I want to turn the floor, you guys, and talk a little bit about as we move forward to building those bridges and looking at some of the things that we can do, and just kind of opening the floor to you and seeing how you feel about that. If there's anything, like, do you have any questions about it? Is there anything that you see that you could probably do better or you want to improve on?
Yeah, Teresa, I think one of the things that stood out to me was the acknowledgement and support that you were talking about with the mental health check-in, right? And no one really being there for you to understand that. So I'm very sorry you have to go through that. And I'm just letting you know right now, anytime you need to talk, doesn't matter what time of day, you can give me a call. I think we all need that more. But yeah, I didn't think about stuff like you were saying until you talked about us. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, Andy. Thank you. You know, it's one of those things that I think we all, especially as we think about bringing on more people of color to um, where we'll probably really need to do that. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and I think what people will find out is that the more we include people of color, the better we're going to be as counselors because it'll allow us to see different things from different points of view. So, you know, I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood and stuff like that. So I got to see some. I didn't get to have to live through all that, but I got to see a lot of the diversity in it, and it really helped me see people in different lights. So I'm excited about that we're doing that. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And one of the other things I want to add to that is as we, when I talked about policies a little bit, is also one of the things to consider moving forward is what it looks like if a client comes in the door and there's an issue or there is some sort of derogatory statement made. How is the center as a whole prepared to address that? What's the stand on that? How is it going to be handled? And also responding to clients that don't want to be seen by African American therapists, which is totally Americans don't want to be seen by white therapists. But how's that going to be handled, and what's the appropriate response from the front desk? Is moving that client to where they need to be and using the appropriate words and languages, and not crossing that line in agreement and promoting discrimination, because it's a fine line uh, to cross. And so kind of want to have policies in place for that, because it will happen. Any other feedback or questions?
Teresa?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have a question.
Mhm.
In intake, we might ask, you prefer a male or a female therapist? Would you prefer this? What's the correct language for black, white, Hispanic? It's easy enough to say for somebody to say, yeah, I need a Spanish speaking.
Mhm.
But how do we determine what's the right wording? What's the right question to ask if somebody wants to see you or me, an old white guy or a young beautiful black woman? I mean,
Mhm.
what's the right language?
If it's coming from a client and they feel pretty confident, they're just going to say it. For someone that is not so comfortable with asserting what they need, as clinicians, it's where we listen, to those clues or that hesitation. Um, and then just asking the questions. And that's where we go to the acknowledgement. I'm a male, older, white guy, and I want to acknowledge that you're a young female Black woman. And do you feel comfortable going forward and having this session? It's about the acknowledgement
Right.
and asking the question.
Yes. If they come, if they're asking the question, but if we as if somebody comes to me and says I'm looking for a referral, and I'm trying to find out what they want, and maybe they're black,
Hmm.
but they've somehow been referred to me, and so I'm trying to find somebody for them, and I
Hmm.
want to know if they call me, but they're looking for Teresa or Andrew.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I just don't know. I don't know if I know the right wording to let them to make it easy for them to say yes. I prefer this or that.
Hmm.
So
I think it would be the same thing, which is um, acknowledging that you don't look like them.
you know what? Maybe it's asking an open-ended question versus asking male, female, black, white. It's tell me about the kind of therapist you're looking for. What will make you the most comfortable?
And you can. And then
Yeah.
I would tell you that some African Americans just direct.
Yeah.
wanting that and wanting that acknowledgement, and not beating around the bush and saying, what do you want? Because sometimes we don't know what we want, and sometimes we're afraid to even say it. So taking that first step and saying, this is the elephant in the room. Do you want him in here? And I say that because I actually had a friend of mine who's a clinician in Kansas, who called me, and she's been doing this way longer than I have, but she American, she never had an African American male client before. And she called me and she did it just as if it was a normal case. We were having a discussion about a case. I have a male African American client. This is what went on in intake. Can we talk about cultural background? Can you tell me, why is this way? Is it normal for this? And so she just asked those like point blank questions, and even acknowledging with him in session. Um, I'm this white woman and you're a young African American gentleman, and I want to acknowledge that right now. Anything else?
So anytime I talk to Charles, I need to make sure he knows he's old.
Okay. And he likes ice cream.
There's not an older person on this staff.
Awesome.
Okay, guys, I am
Thanks,
going to try
Teresa.
to get out of this thing here. You guys, I apologize about the video. It worked earlier.
If you find it, can we somehow get that in an email?
Yes. Yes.
Andrew, you found
So,
one?
Yeah, it's in the chat.
he,
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
that's one.
will I lose that as soon as we shut this down, though?
That's okay. I'll
Copy
send
it.
it. I'll send it because there's another one that I thought would be really interesting that I didn't include, and it's called The Look. It's actually a commercial by P&G, Procter and Gamble, which is actually really good. I'll add that one as well.
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah.
Save
But
to
thank you guys, and I just want to thank you guys for having me and giving me an opportunity to present. And to just tell you that, yeah, as we move forward, it's just, I cannot